Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Reedboard, and this is More Than Meds, where I talk about psychotherapy and psychologically informed psychiatry. But today I'm going to talk about something outside of the office. I'm going to talk about road rage. Seen from a psychiatrist's perspective, road rage tells us a lot about human psychology. In this short video, I'm going to be talking about object relations theory, the psychology of splitting, the fundamental attribution error, even whether people are fundamentally good or evil. So stay tuned. Let's set the scene. You pull up to a stop sign at the same time as another driver. It isn't clear who goes first. You both start into the intersection at the same time. The other driver speeds through while you jam on the brakes to prevent a collision. You feel offended, diminished, insulted. What was that other driver thinking? Who the hell do they think they are? They nearly killed me. This kind of scenario, and countless others like it, happen all the time. In merge lanes, competing for parking spots, people driving too fast, people driving too slow. We may feel a rush of anger, a sense of being treated unfairly, being diminished, being treated with contempt. This person doesn't care if I live or die. This person's own needs come way before mine. Mine don't even count. It makes us angry. Sometimes to the point of giving the other driver the finger or beeping the horn, and can escalate all the way up to use of weapons or using the car as a battering ram. What's really going on here? In a practical sense, the initial harm is often trivial. You've been delayed for a few seconds. Someone was a little rude. A moment's delay at a stop sign is insignificant under other circumstances. The real trigger, and the point I want to make in this video, is what's going on in your own head when you feel someone has aggressed against you on the road. One of the reasons road rage is so common is because cars all look alike from the outside. You can't tell what the other driver is thinking, what their attitude is. A driver with an mean, contemptuous, selfish attitude looks just the same as somebody who would have been apologetic and really sorry that they did something that you took offense to. While you were cursing and giving them the finger, they may have been in the car wincing and muttering, "Oh, I'm sorry." You just don't know. Road rage is really all self-generated. It's all the picture you have in your head about what's going on with the other driver. Now, sometimes this is very obvious. If somebody risks your life and they are clearly contemptuous of you, they're giving you the finger and so forth, it doesn't take a lot of interpretation to figure out what's going on. But that's often not the case. These things escalate owing to the guesses we make about what's going on in the mind of the other person. Let me give you two scenarios. They're identical except in one respect. In both cases, you're driving along in the fast lane, or if there is only one lane in your direction, and behind you comes a car speeding, comes right up behind your bumper, beeps the horn, and then pulls into the shoulder, not even on the lane, passes you, pulls back into the lane, and speeds off. That's apt to make you pretty upset, not just scared, but angry at the attitude of that driver if it's a regular car. But what if it was an ambulance? You might have been scared at the potential danger of having the vehicle come up behind you so fast, but you wouldn't be angry necessarily at the ambulance driver, you would assume they had a good reason to do that. They weren't doing it to make you feel small. Or here's another example. This really happened to me not too long ago. I was stopped at a red light on one of the major thoroughfares here in San Francisco on Geary Street, if you're familiar with the city. And a car came up behind me. I was the first one behind the red light. There was no one else. This car came up behind me, leaned on the horn, frantically motioned for me to get out of the way. And I don't know why. I didn't know why. I didn't know if they wanted to just be first at the red light, or they were going to run the red light, or what they were going to do. After a minute or two of this, I did pull over. The driver ran the red light. There was no traffic coming the other way, and sped off. I thought, what the hell was that? And then I saw this driver speed ahead a couple blocks and pull over right in front of the Kaiser Medical Center on Geary Street. Stopped the car right in front. I don't think that was a legal parking space, and ran inside. Now, I don't know if that was a patient or the family member of a patient or one of the medical or healthcare staff, but I really had a different feeling about it. This was not somebody who just liked to break the law or put me in my place. This was someone who really needed to get to the medical center fast. It really changed my feeling about what had happened there. So this all has to do with our assumptions about ourselves and other people. Are other people fundamentally out to get us? Are they fundamentally selfish? Or are other people fundamentally generous and care about other people, including us? Do we go through life as a victim, or do we victimize other people? Well, in psychiatry and psychotherapy, there's a very complex theory that we use to understand people called object relations theory. It's a very complex way of treating this question of the assumptions we have in our heads about ourselves and other people. There are people who go through life with a relatively rigid, fixed sense that people are out to get them, or that they've got to look over their shoulder all the time, or that people are out to humiliate or diminish them. They're more apt to perceive other drivers as triggers for road rage. They're more apt to feel road rage themselves. Other people are a lot less likely to do that because of the schemas or templates, or what we call object representations, fancy name for the same thing, that they have where they don't make that kind of assumption, at least not readily. Some people evidence a more extreme version of this that in psychotherapy we call splitting. That's a phenomenon where either temporarily or as a kind of long-term personality feature, a person tends to think of people as either good or evil without too much in between. Tends to think of situations as either really, really good or really, really bad. Tends to see the world in black and white, not in shades of gray. One thing I like to tell the psychotherapy trainees that I teach is that we all split from time to time. And road rage is a pretty good example of that. In the midst of a feeling of rage and a kind of impulse to retaliate in a road, in a traffic or road situation, we don't see the good in the other person. And we don't see that we might have made a mistake either. We see us as good and we see them as bad. And for most of us, that's a temporary condition. And once we cool down a little bit or just give it a few seconds, we realize that it's not as clear cut in most cases, or that we don't need to see it in such an extreme way. In particular, I think that a lot of road rage is a reaction to a perception in another driver, another motorist, of contempt towards us. A sense that the other driver thinks that we're worthless, not worth caring about or paying attention to, that their needs are so much more important than ours that they can treat us like dirt. And that then leads to a lot of anger and feelings of having to stand up for yourself, having to show them that you're not a nothing, that you're somebody to pay attention to take into consideration. And in so doing, a road rage situation can escalate, because then, of course, just the opposite happens in the mind of the other person who's involved in the exchange. There's another aspect to this which illustrates an important point in psychology, and that is called the fundamental attribution error. And that is a finding from some decades ago in the field of social psychology, which is the branch of psychology that looks at the way the social environment affects how we think and feel. And the fundamental attribution error is that we tend to explain our own behavior situationally, whereas we tend to explain the behavior of other people in terms of their personality or character. Let me give you an example here. If I am pulled over for speeding, or I suddenly realize I'm speeding on the highway, my understanding of why that happens is going to be situational. I wasn't paying attention. I was in a hurry this one time, but I don't normally do that. Don't judge me by this one episode. I'm not normally like that, right? But if you see someone else speeding, it's because they're a jerk, right? It's because they don't care about other people. It's because they are selfish. These are all statements about their personality or their character, not about how they are just then. The fundamental attribution error, by the way, is called an error because, according to social psychologists, we don't really credit the situation enough to explain why people act the way they do. That under certain circumstances, most people act pretty much the same. And that, parenthetically, is why there is such a unique setup in psychoanalysis and psychodynamic psychotherapy, because you really have to create a situation that doesn't make everybody all act the same, that really puts aside all the situational factors so that you can see the personality come out. Under most of the rest of life, the situation determines what we do. If we're in a hurry, for example, we're less likely to be altruistic. That's another finding of social psychology I really find valuable. So in a road rage situation, we think, I'm just being my usual good self, but the other person is being their usual terrible self. And so we feel like we are justified in responding with anger to that. This is also, incidentally, a good explanation for why the great majority of drivers believe they are above average drivers, which of course is a mathematical impossibility. And that's because whenever any of us realize we've done something wrong, we explain it away situationally, whereas we keep thinking of the other drivers as being inherently accident-prone, mistake-prone, not careful. So of course we're above average. Are there things we can do to mitigate road rage, to make it less likely for ourselves to engage in it? There are a few things. Alcohol and some drugs make us more likely to get angry, to be irritable, So avoiding those is, of course, a good idea if you're driving. Also, as I said earlier, being in a rush makes us less likely to be generous, less likely to be altruistic. When we're in a rush, when we're under other kinds of stress, we are more likely to be set off by other people. There's also the phenomenon of displacement. That's when a feeling that we have, anger for example, towards someone else or some other situation is expressed in a place where it is easier to express it. And it's often easier to express it on the road with anonymous people, people we don't know, like we're being angry at the cars, not the drivers in some cases. So all of these can make road rage more likely, and that we can try to be aware of, try not to let it affect us. But ultimately, we live in a society that's crowded, that has a lot of stress, and that often has other irritated drivers. And so road rage is something that we're all going to be dealing with in ourselves and in other people. And I think it's important to step back a little bit and understand some of the psychology behind it. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. If you like these videos, please subscribe. You might want to check out this one, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.